This video is intended for entertainment and historical purposes only. It's not meant to be an instructional tutorial or provide professional advice. Today we're going to talk about one of the most fascinating and important engineering skills that most people find way too complicated to ever attempt, if they even know what it is. I'm going to show you my process from start to finish and hopefully demystify things along the way. Before we get into it, let's talk about what we're making today. This is a throttle handle from a long scrap steam locomotive. It's obviously too big for the Davenports, but design-wise, it's similar to what the Davenports used. This is the throttle quadrant. We need to cast smaller versions of this out of brass. However, before we can do that, we need a pattern.
Pattern making is another important branch of woodworking. This wooden pattern of a flywheel, for example, is necessary in forming a hollow mold in sand, into which molten metal is poured to form this metal casting. Later, the casting is machined and finished ready for use. In the pattern shop, the maker of wooden patterns works from a drawing or blueprint which has been supplied him. He uses various woodworking machines and hand tools. His work must be extremely accurate, and it is complicated by the fact that the pattern usually is made in 2 or more pieces, so that it can be removed from the sand molds. When the pattern is finished, the inside corners are rounded by means of fillets. The whole pattern is then shellacked. The true test of a pattern is the ease with which sand molds can be made from it.
The quadrant pattern is going to be made from 1/4-inch thick mahogany and 1-inch half-round oak. It's going to be a 2-piece split pattern comprised of 10 individual blanks laminated together. Referencing existing Davenport quadrant styles and measurements, I laid out a pattern drawing on heavy craft paper that accounts for the 3/16 inch per foot of shrinkage that comes with pouring molten brass. The drawing was cut out and gets traced onto the mahogany. Moving over to the bandsaw, each of the 3 tracings gets cut into individual pieces. Now we carefully follow the tracing lines and cut out our blanks. It's okay if the blank ends up a little big, but it's very important that we don't cut it smaller than the tracing lines. My process for pattern making has 3 basic stages: the drawing, the pattern blanks, and the pattern. You can think of it like building a house, and doing the pattern blanks is your foundation. If we take the time now and do things properly, we're going to make our life a lot easier down the road. A little pattern like this isn't too bad, but when you get into the larger ones, made up of a dozen or more blanks, each cut slightly differently, you really regret rushing this stage. Remember, all the blanks need to end up smooth and match each other perfectly. The first 3 blanks get laid out on the bench to see how they look. I'm sure some of you have already noticed that I'm laying them out upside down and backwards. That wasn't intentional, but at this point it doesn't really matter. The blanks get clamped together and sanded so their outside profiles are all identical. These first 3 blanks are the most important as they make up the main body of the quadrant itself and are 1/2 of the split pattern. The lower half of the pattern will consist of a half-round body that transitions into a rectangle and ends at a gentle radius. Selecting a gentle radius that looks right but doesn't match the sharp curves of the quadrant body took a very specialized tool in the form of a paint can. I quickly cut one of these lower body blanks out and tested it against the quadrant just to ensure it looks right. Happy with the paint can radius, 4 more were cut, and then all 5 were clamped together and sanded. This might look like a lot of material, but much of it is going to get machined away on the final casting. The final 2 blanks needed for the pattern are the half-rounds. They get cut to length and slotted. Then a quick test fit to see how things are looking. I want the transition from half round to flat to sort of smoothly sweep back. So with this in mind, off to the sander we go. After a couple minutes of sanding, the half rounds are mocked up, but they really don't have the look I'm after. So I'll cut a couple new ones off camera and we'll profile them another way. Before the blanks can get glued together, we need to add draft to the inside faces of the pattern. Draft is basically just a taper that will allow the pattern to be extracted from the sand mold without damaging it along the way. Comparing the two pieces, you can see why the bottom half with draft will lift out of the mold much easier than the top half without draft. A basic rule of thumb is patterns need to be smooth and well drafted on every surface that interacts with the sand. We can now start assembling all the freshly drafted pattern blanks into a single part using some run-of-the-mill wood glue. Everything gets clamped together and left overnight to dry. The next morning, I have what can only be described as the Frankenstein's monster of wood patterns. I was never too concerned about the fit and finish between individual pieces. I've focused my attention on the outside profile and radius, and the depressed center of the quadrant. Wood filler and sanding was always going to compensate for everything else. I applied a thick coat of wood filler and then used my fingers to sculpt it into the rough appearance I was after. Once it dried thoroughly, I sanded it smooth and checked the fit and profile. Then I repeated the fill, sand, check process until I was satisfied with the results. Now that the pattern looks a bit more presentable, we can give it a quick wipe with a damp towel and start the staining process. The final pattern needs to be smooth as glass, so I like to use an acrylic polyurethane clear coat. The pattern is given progressively thicker coats until it feels totally smooth to the touch. I've always had good results using this product. However, at some point I might try some traditional yellow shellac just to see how it compares. Old pattern making textbooks often include different recipes for stain or shellac, and I think it would be kind of interesting to do a direct comparison between a modern polyurethane and a 100-year-old shellac recipe. After all this work, here's the final product. A very usable pattern that will produce a part close to the original in both size and appearance, ready to be sent to the foundry and used to make our new quadrant castings. Of course, I can't end the video without mocking it up so you can see what the final product should look like. Before we wrap up today, I'd like to mention a couple things. There's a new link in the channel and video description that leads over to the Wrecked to Restored Patreon page. Over the last few months, many of you have inquired about making donations towards the project. With this in mind, I set up a Patreon page specifically for this purpose. To be completely honest and transparent, you won't receive any perks if you donate through Patreon. It's strictly meant to be a way for people who want to contribute directly to the project to do so regardless of where they live. The other thing I want to mention is the length of this video. I'm sure you've noticed it's quite a bit shorter than my normal content. Because of the sheer number of patterns I'm going to be making, I plan to keep the pattern making videos a bit shorter so they don't get repetitive. I'm also going to save these videos for mid-month releases. I hope you've all enjoyed this first look at pattern making. If you're enjoying the project, please consider subscribing, leaving a comment, and giving the video a like. None of that costs you anything, but it goes a long way towards building the channel.